Hey, welcome back my friends to Aprons On, and as promised in last week's video, we're exploring some Cajun flavors and we will be making pork and crawfish meatballs. So let's have a look at the ingredients, see what we got. I've got 1.5 pounds of 85% lean ground pork, some green onions or scallion, celery, whole green pepper, a lemon, apple, some chicken stock, some parsley, Cajun seasoning of your choice, salt and pepper to season, and the star of the dish, of course, is our crawfish. Now, you can get these in most of the major supermarket chains. You'll find them in the seafood section. They're already cooked and peeled. They're really versatile. You can put them in quiches, salads, our meatballs today. If you can't find these, or if you're in a country where you just don't see them in the supermarket, just go ahead and get some large shrimp and just cut them into like pieces about the size of the tip of your thumb, and you'll be fine with that. It won't taste exactly the same, of course, but you'll still get that nice combination of that seafoody flavor against the pork. All right, let's get stuck in and chop up some of our vegetables. Now, I've tried to keep this really, really simple. Although it looks like there's a lot on the cutting board, we're only going to actually use 1/2 cup of each one of our vegetable ingredients. So you don't have to weigh anything for this. It's going to be really simple. So enough chit chat. Let's get stuck in. Okay, let's start with chopping up some scallion then. Now, it's funny, in the south, it seems like they use the top of the onion in their cooking, and in the north and in Europe they use the bottom half. Don't know why that is, but there you go. Like I said, we want to chop about 1/2 cup. Get yourself a little measuring cup like this. And as you can see, there you go, pretty close. So Cajun food, to my mind, is soul food. You have great ingredients, but the most important ingredient of all is you make it with love and feeling. So don't get hung up on the details of the measurements. All right, so we got our onions. We're just going to pop them in a little bowl here, just for ease of explaining the recipe. Now, there are 3 very important ingredients to Cajun cooking, and they're actually known as the Trinity. And those are our scallion, green onions, green pepper, and celery. And you'll find in a lot of Cajun dishes, it is what you start out with. It gives it that authentic flavor. Let's do some celery. Cut this nice and fine. That looks about right. In fact, that's even probably a little bit more than that. But you know what? It doesn't matter. We just have a little bit more celery. Our green pepper. Now, we're not going to need the whole green pepper, I don't think. Take that core out of there. Now you want to make this a fairly fine dice. So just cut this into little strips first. Then take a few of these, just sort of stack them up like this, and then just run through them with your knife like that. Grab a few more, same routine. So there you go, 1/2 cup. So there's your Trinity, chopped up. We need to sweat those down in a pan first and pre-cook them. So let's get a pan heating up. Get some olive oil in there. Once your pan's heated up, don't leave it on high because then you'll burn your veg. And we'll steal a little bit of our Cajun spice. Like I said, we just want to sweat that down. So what that means is We just want these to soften up. And when they've done that, we can take them off the heat completely and let them cool, because we're going to add this to our ground pork in a little bit. So back at the board, we want to cut about half a cup of parsley. We're not going to sweat this down because it cooks really fast. We're just going to add that to our pork. So now we're going to add our Cajun spice. This is a combination spice, it's a blend, and you can find it in most supermarkets. If you don't want it real spicy, then don't use as much. This is 2 tablespoons. But you'll be surprised, once you add this to the meat, you'll feel like you're putting too much seasoning in, but as it cooks, it evens out. So just sprinkle that on there like that. Next, we are going to take our whole lemon, peel that little label off of there, and we're going to zest the lemon. So this is called a foil. If you don't have one of these, just a cheese grater on the finest side. So just go around there, look, till you've got most of the zest off. Don't throw that away. Put it in Ziploc bags so it doesn't dry out. Pop it in the fridge and you can use that for lemon juice later on. Put our lemon zest in there. So what goes great with pork? Apples. What this apple's going to do is help our pork meatball from drying out too much. It's always a concern with pork that if you overcook it, it's going to get too dry. So how easy was that? So now the fun part. Get your hands in there. So get that nicely mixed together. And this is an important part of this process, because what we want is for that pork, when we roll it into a meatball, to actually stay together. And if you don't mix this first, you don't get what's in sausage making is known as a primary bind. And you'll know when you'll get there because it'll just stick in your fingers like this. See that? And that's the proteins in the meat. Once you get to that stage, we can add our crawfish. All right, let's get these bad boys out of their packet here. There's quite a lot of juice in there, and a lot of it is the fat that is in the crayfish or crawfish or crawdad, depending on where you're from. You want that juice in there. Again, this is going to keep that pork nice and moist, and it's where you get that just tremendous flavour. All right, there you go. That's what you got left with, and I'll tell you what, that smells absolutely amazing. You can smell the lemon. You've got that kind of Cajun spice thing going on. So now we're going to add our Trinity, which has cooled down enough that we can just scrape that all out. Olive oil, the lot. And blend that in as well. So this might look like quite a bit of work on the prep side, but it really isn't. If you take your time, look, and do it step by step, it's really pretty simple. And once you've done this a few times, it's like riding a bike. So there you go. You can make this the day before and stick it in the fridge overnight, which is actually a good thing if you've got time to do that, for 2 reasons. First and obvious reason is the flavours all get a chance to really meld together. The second and not so obvious reason is during the mixing process, the heat from our hands starts to liquefy the fat in the meat and makes this really sort of sticky and gooey. You can still, if you don't have the time, you can still form a meatball with it, but it's just a little bit wetter. If you can get this in the fridge overnight, or even throw it in the freezer for 30 minutes. It'll make it easier and they'll hold their shape a lot better. So while our pork and crawfish are chilling out and getting to know each other in the freezer, we need to talk about what we're going to serve our meatballs on. And I'm going to make what I call a hot potato salad. And it's really, really simple to make, and it's incredibly versatile. I make this a lot, especially in the summer. It goes great with steaks, with pork ribs, with all kinds of stuff. So I've got 3 large russet potatoes and 1 medium sweet potato. So we want to peel and dice these. You know how I do it. I take the top, bottom off so you can stand it up, and then just go down the sides. Now I've got some cold water in a saucepan here, and you're just going to do sort of a medium dice like that, and you're going to have some small bits, that doesn't matter. Throw those in the saucepan with the cold water. Don't season the saucepan just yet though, because we're going to drain that water off and refill it, because you'll get a ton of starch will come out of these potatoes. You'll see when you put these in the water gets really, really milky, and that's all the starch. So I'm just going to drain that off in the sink and then refill it. And now our sweet potato. Why do I add a sweet potato? To have a little bit of colour variation. Now the sweet potatoes, they cook a little bit slower, so you can go a little bit smaller with your dice on those. So throw them in there with the spuds. Give this kind of a shake and then drain that water off and refill it with clean. All right, we've refilled that with cold water, with clean cold water. Give it a healthy pinch of salt. So let's get that on the cooker with a lid on it. And we're going to cook them until they are fork tender. So this is maize flour. I use it for the most part to dust the inside of my bannetons with when I bake bread. But I'm going to use it just to coat the meatballs with. If you don't have this, use regular flour. This just has a really unique flavour, and I just happen to really like it. All right, let's start making some meatballs then. So I work from left to right, so I've got my pork and crawfish meatball mix, my maize flour, and a plate to put them on. So I like to make my meatballs something worth taking your time for. So make them about a tennis ball size, and then just set them in the flour, and the flour just stops that stickiness and helps you just to form it nice and round. So there you go, it's not quite as big as a tennis ball. If you're in the States, it's about baseball size, I guess. So there's our meatballs formed. Let's set those aside and check on our potatoes. So our potatoes are done. So let's drain the water off of those and just set them aside with the lid on so they don't get cold. All right, let's start cooking some of these meatballs. Now, I generally serve 2 per person. Get the heat on high. If you've got a nice thick based pan, that works great. A nice high sides is also really helps to cook the meatballs. Okay, our pan's warmed up nicely. Not quite 1/8 of an inch of olive oil into the bottom of that pan. So we'll start at 12 o'clock. This is a bit like cooking scallops, if you've ever cooked scallops. And just go around the outside of the pan like that. Watch your fingers, obviously. So let's have a look and see how we're doing. They've been on this side now for about 5 minutes. There you go. That looks great. That's exactly what we want. So using your palette knife, just very gently turn it over and then go to the next one. So just continue to turn these around so that they're browned all the way around. Be gentle with them though, because you don't want them to break. Okay, at this point, you want to take your chicken stock and you're just going to add chicken stock till it's about 1/4 of an inch deep. Turn your heat up and bring that up to a simmer. And what this is going to do is finish cooking the meatball without burning the outsides. So just let them simmer away like that for about 20 minutes until the internal temperature is around 180, 185, which is around between 87 and 90 Celsius. Okay, these are about 25 minutes. We've got an internal temperature of just over 180. So we're going to stop right there, take that off the heat and put a lid on them to keep them warm. Okay, I'm just going to whip up some mayonnaise. So 1 whole egg, teaspoon of mustard of your choice, a teaspoon of white wine vinegar, and about 1 cup. I'm going to use some olive oil, but it's very mild olive oil. Like that. Pinch of salt. Pinch of pepper. I didn't have any white pepper. I'm using black, but it will work just fine. Then just take your immersion blender with the blending wheel. This is a bar mix. They're a little more expensive than your $39.95 ones that you'll see in the big box stores, but I cook a lot and I thought it was worth the investment. It's an absolutely fabulous tool, and as you'll see, it makes fantastic mayonnaise. So you just set it in the bottom there, put it on high, and just emulsify the egg and the olive oil. And there you've got an instant, fresh made mayonnaise. Now you don't have to do that, of course. The only reason I did it is because I forgot to get some at the supermarket. But there you are. Right, we've made our mayonnaise. We need to make our roasted garlic. So just squish your garlic cloves down with the blade of your knife. So now you want to cut this garlic. You want to slice it nice and thin. And we're going to toast these. And then we'll just pop our garlic in there like that. Now you want to stay on top of this because we don't want it to burn. We just want it to toast. So what you're looking for is for this to just start to go a little bit brown. See, there you go. That's what we want, and I'll tell you what, this is flavour off the charts. So we're going to stop right there. Okay, I've got a good handful of baby spinach leaves. And what you're going to do with these is you're just sort of going to gather them all up like this and kind of roll it, almost like you're making a cigar, let's say. and then just run through it. This is a very, very rough version of what's called a chiffonade, where you would actually roll the leaves up inside each other like a cigar is, and then cut across it, and then you get these nice little strips. Now, our potatoes, we want to give them a quick shake. What that'll do is bruise the edges, and we're going to add our mayonnaise, probably, let's see, not too much. I'm looking at maybe 3 tablespoons to start with. Just gently fold that mayonnaise in. Add our spinach. And then right at the end, we take our lovely toasted garlic and the olive oil that's in the pan, because that's been infused with that lovely garlic flavour. And we put that on top of our potatoes. Last verse, same as the first. Just incorporate those toasted garlic pieces. And the smell is tremendous. Get a lid on that to keep it warm. And now we're going to put this on a plate and dig in. You've got that lovely hot potato salad with roasted garlic. And a couple of meatballs. See, who says meat and potatoes has to be boring? And then we can just sprinkle a little bit of our Cajun seasoning on the top. And that's it. Well, my friends, that was pork and crawfish meatballs on a toasted garlic and potato salad. I hope you try this. When you cut into these meatballs, you just see all these lovely colours. You've got the crayfish tails in there and the parsley, that hint of lemon from the lemon zest, and then you've got that nice spice, those Cajun spices, and the potatoes, I'll tell you, they are off the scale flavour with the toasted garlic. So give this a go. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe, tell your friends, hit the little notification bell so you know when my next recipe comes out, and I will see you next week. Cheers.